What's up guys, it's me Jeremy. I know I planned for the return of Hearthstone videos to come much sooner, but I wanted to make sure that I will be able to upload them in addition to League videos, rather than instead of League videos. That being said, you could probably expect one Hearthstone video every week or so from here on out, most likely. Anyways, if you've been struggling in the constructed Hearthstone ranked ladder, you've come to the right place. In this guide, I'll give you the tools and some tips to make the right decisions for yourself and succeed on your own. Let's get started. The first thing you want to do to master constructed Hearthstone is to choose your deck. If you're playing on a budget, I highly recommend playing an aggressive deck. And even if you aren't playing on a budget, aggressive decks are still the best thing to play on ladder. The reason for this is because the grind to get to legend takes a really long time, and so the length that your games take to play out is something that you really need to consider. Playing a deck that takes forever to win a game is not something you want to do, since you need to expect around 200 to 300 games required to get to legend, unless your win rate is above 65%, which doesn't really happen at all. And in this category, net decking is honestly your friend. Net decking, or looking up and copying decks online, kind of gets a bad rap, but it really does work well, and you need to find a deck that is good and something you enjoy playing, so you have to do some research and know at least what's out there. As far as the ladder goes, I personally recommend playing mid-range decks, as they are pretty much always what seems to be at the top, and are aggressive enough to win games quickly, while powerful enough to beat every single matchup. Mid-range decks have consistently been at the top tier of the game for a very long time, and will continue due to their strengths and versatility. You want a deck that is versatile and can win against anything, especially in a meta that is so diverse as it is today. If you're playing on a budget, there's a bunch of competitive aggro decks that are really popular that cost around 2,000 dust or so you can definitely have some really competitive options. Finding the right deck for you is all about finding a balance between something that is good and something that you enjoy to play. So think about the playstyle that you enjoy and try to build the best deck possible around that playstyle, rather than looking for a specific class or type of deck that might not perform as well as you want it to. The next most important thing to do is learn the meta and the matchups that your deck will face. The meta right now is really diverse, and so you need to know how to play against and mulligan properly versus pretty much every single deck that is competitive, because people are honestly playing pretty much everything that's viable right now. This is going to be the number one thing for you to do to avoid making misplays, which will allow you to avoid a lot of unnecessary losses. Now, it's easy for me to sit here and say, oh, you should just know all the matchups, when in reality it does take a lot of time to learn. One of the best ways I find to learn the meta is to simply just do some research on some of the more popular Hearthstone websites. Tempo Storm is my personal favorite, as they do a fantastic job of updating weekly meta snapshots that give you a great description of every single deck in the game that is viable for you to analyze and do your research. I recommend you study those and learn the decks. If it's your first time playing ladder, make sure you think a lot about the matchups and the decks when you play against them, as you'll likely lose a lot of games early on simply to just not understanding the matchups. But if you do your research and analyze as you go when you play against decks you've never faced before, it shouldn't be too hard to learn quite quickly. But more importantly, know how your own deck interacts with the meta decks out there that people play, because you need to change the way you play depending on the deck you are facing. You can't just play the same way against every single deck. And another thing you need to do is to metagame heavily. Using a program like Hearth Tracker, or even just through pen and paper, you can track the decks you are constantly facing. It's true that the meta is diverse, but there will always be some decks that are at least a little bit more popular than others. By tracking what decks you are playing against over a span of say 20 to 30 games, you can find which decks are the most popular on the ladder in that current moment and are being played a lot. After that, you can analyze the matchups really well, look at the decks being played, and then look at how your own deck faces against them. And then you can move into making conscious choices for tech cards. Tech cards are the extra room you have in your deck, those 2 to 3 extra slots for cards in your deck that are left up in the air and are really flexible. You can then choose your tech cards to improve your matchups against the most popular decks that your own deck has a bad matchup versus. Common tech options that I like to include in my decks include things such as 1 to 2 big game hunters, zombie chows, ironbeak owls, mind control tech, black knight, and Harrison Jones, as well as some other more class specific cards. These cards are definitely not core in any deck, but are great options to include to significantly improve specific, common, popular matchups that you're facing a lot. Choosing your tech cards properly is probably the number one thing you can do to make sure your deck is more diverse, and improve matchups as a whole overall. And lastly, when grinding to legend, you have to realize that if you want even just a chance, you are going to have to play a ridiculous amount of games. Expect 200 to 300 games minimum to be necessary to hit Legend, and within only one short month, it can be quite hard to do that. However, if you know you won't be able to play that many games, I think it is still worth it to play at least a small amount, even casually, just because of all of those things I mentioned earlier. Learning matchups, figuring out tech cards, metagaming, all those things you can learn in a casual season where you play say under 100 games, and then the next month you go super hardcore and try to step it up in the game count category. If you're trying to play more games, the biggest thing I can recommend for yourself is to actively set aside some time for yourself on a regular schedule. Find your average game time, say 5 to 10 minutes or so, and you can calculate how long it will take you to play 300 plus games. Then you can schedule yourself some good old Hearthstone time into your daily routines. Maybe you play an hour or two every day, maybe you don't play during the week and you just play super hard on the weekend. Whatever works for you. Anyways, that just about wraps up my tips. My name is Jeremy, and that's it for my video on Constructed Hearthstone. Hey guys, it's me, Jeremy. Thanks for watching my video. If you enjoyed it, definitely make sure to hit that like button so I can tell, and if you're interested, definitely check me out over on all the socials, of which you can see over there. And if you really enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe for some more awesome content in the future, and definitely check out some of my other videos as well, up here and over there. Anyways, that's going to be it. Thanks again for watching, and of course, I'll see you guys next time.